Perfect. We are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third day of the NAAEE conference. This time online. My name is Jack Baker. I'm the host of Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast. I'm an environmental educator. I am a conservationist, and I am a very, very excited person because today I am here in the driver's seat to have an amazing conversation with Hamza Malik, who is the Director of Research Programs and Strategic Partnerships at the Lloyd Centre. We're going to be talking a little bit about that and a little bit about his session, which is, I've written it down so I don't get it wrong, Empowering Youth Leadership with Environmental Policy and Ecology. So thank you so much for joining me today, Hamza. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, I am really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fantastic. I guess I gave you a brief, well, I told everyone your job title there for a second, but there is probably so much more to you than I can ever learn from a job title or a LinkedIn page or whatever. So I always like with my guests to hand over and say, you introduce yourself. I'll put all the responsibility on you. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about, your work and who are you, Hamza?
Thank you so much, Jack, again. I think starting off, as you mentioned, my name is Hamza Malik, and I work as a research director and strategic partnership at the Lloyd Centre for the Environment, which is a nature center located in South Dartmouth, Massachusetts. We are an 82-acre property, and we have different kind of habitats there. We have brackish water, maritime forests. We have cattle ponds. A lot of our work happens on education is one of our biggest department, and I've been working with the center from almost now past 5 years. And So yeah, this was my dissertation site for my PhD, and I started working as a fellow there, and this was the first department that we raised. So Lloyd Center has been working for education from past 40 plus years. But there was no formal science education department there. So I was the first fellow who started working, publishing stuff that our education team has been doing, learning more about environmental educators. Ended up completing my PhD dissertation there, and I was lucky enough to get a full time job there and ended up raising a new department on science education. And now, from almost a year plus, I'm heading the research department that focuses on just not the education side, but also the natural research side, where we work with piping plovers, coastal birds. We have so many different research projects that we do. And yeah, so that's been in the nutshell what I've been doing and what my job entails. A lot of things.
I was going to say, I think that's the classic environmental educator trope, right? Is we are one thing, but like at a time, but we are often wearing like many hats all at once. We're doing research, we're doing this thing, we're doing that thing, we're diving in, we're starting new departments, we're doing research, we're doing everything. And I just like on a personal like reflection, like my PhD ends November next year. So I am in awe of the fact that like I have November next year in my brain as like we get there, this paper goes in, and I fall asleep for about 3 years, and then I wake up. So the fact that you were doing your PhD and then have jumped back in and helped raise a new department, not just done, do an easy backseat job. You've got thrown yourself right in is so admirable. Is that something I want to ask, like, where do you find the energy? What was the inspiration behind being like, I want to keep this going? Was it just, are you a very driven person, or was there a mission? What makes you want to keep going like that?
That's a great question. First of all, I mean, good luck for your PhD, and I hope everything goes smooth. Um, I think for me, I think it's mixture. I am a driven person, but I think, as you mentioned, being an environmental educator all my life, and honestly, that is my dissertation focus as well. That what kind of role environmental educators play when they work with nature center and museums. So this is the world that I live in. I think it has a lot to do with the community that I have worked. That gives me the energy and the the power to do these kind of things and work with it. So it's never a one person show. It's for environmental education and the team. I think it's the people that you work with and the communities you work for. I mean, honestly, like I think nature centers and doing field trips and doing education programs, and you see a kid that who lives maybe like 2 miles away from a coastal area, but they've never been to a beach. And once you do a field
Yeah.
trip with them and you take them out, and that happiness that you see in their face, I think that is the biggest motivation for me to keep it going. So I think that has a lot to do with the community that I work with and community that I work for. So I think that's where my source of inspiration to keep this thing going comes with.
Amazing. No, amazing. I think that's like the perfect answer to that question. I love it. No, and I completely get what you mean because I had similar experiences. I used to teach at a botanic garden, and there was one year we did a summer school where there's the Royal Botanic Garden in the centre of the city of Edinburgh, and then they have these what they're called satellite gardens around the outside, kind of around Scotland in more kind of rural places. And I went to teach, and I'd never visited Logan Botanic Garden before, but I knew it was in the middle of the countryside. I knew it was surrounded by forests and streams and the ocean, and it's part of one of the most starkly beautiful places of Scotland, right? It's the most stereotypically Scottish place you can imagine. And yeah, I went there, and all of the kids there came to the Botanic Garden and were like, what? I know nothing about nature. And it was this moment of like, you live so close. And I think because as an environmental educator, I'm so excited about it. It's that moment, even for me, sometimes I remember, hang on, just because I love this and just because I make the time and can make the time and have the ability and the resources to make the time doesn't mean everyone can. And yeah, those moments of inspiration, I think, when you get to switch that light bulb on for people are so amazing. Um, I
Absolutely.
guess that actually, and it leads nicely onto a question I wanted to ask, which is, what are you doing with your community, right? You're building this department and you're intrigued and you're doing all of these various things, but what is it that the work that you and the Lloyd Centre are doing with these communities?
That's a great question, and I think um, a lot of the work, as I said, education is one of our biggest department. I think every year we've been working with almost 10 to 15,000 students every year, and this includes summer programs. This includes in-school programs, and we cater students starting from like younger age, upper elementary level, and it goes up to like teacher training programs as well. So we have this vast education programs that we work with. And I think what we have been doing with our community is to engage them in these environmental education conversations, and make them learn about the habitats and the places which are close to them, why they're important to protect them, how can they protect them, and honestly, work with them to have some action related to these things, like working with students, how they can go back to their school and implement the things that they've been doing in summer programs. So it's a lot of conversations as well as action based work, especially for the education department. And for the research side, I think from past few years, we have been actively working to disseminate a lot of our research, things that we have been learning at the Lloyd Center. As I said, we have 42 plus years of experience in education, so we have ton of data that we have been working with, and we have staff members who are like awesome. They're like superheroes working in this field from past 20 plus years. They're like walking encyclopedias for environmental education. So I think We're making sure that we're getting that information in the way of science education as well, and informing the field about these places, these centers, because working at as a researcher, as a PhD student for years, I think I was surprised not to see a lot of this kind of work already out there in the field. So once I started working, I realized, oh my God, we've been doing this for a very long time, and there's not a lot of research out there on what kind of work these environmental educators do. So I think we've been doing mainly that education side, and for the research side, making sure we're going out at conferences, we're talking to people, we're presenting our work, we're publishing our papers in the academic journal. So a lot of stuff happening there.
No, that's really exciting, and I think that's really, yeah, I think it's really nice, and I think the thing that I really appreciate there, and I think the thing we need to remember, I think, is often we always, and maybe you didn't mean to touch on it, but the thing that stood out to me is something that who has had the pleasure and the privilege of working with very established environmental educators, right, is that I think so often our focus is on the next generation, right, and making sure they are empowered and equipped. And that's so important. But also taking a moment to appreciate the 20 years of knowledge and work that went on before and writing that down and making sure that's noted down, because it's something that I'm so aware of is like the people I've worked with, right? There's one day they're going to move to another organization. They're going to retire. They're going to decide that they don't want to do this anymore, or they're going to go and try and start a family or do something else and they'll be taken away from the field. And then when that happens, the 20 years of knowledge that they have goes with them. So utilizing it while it's there and supporting it and encouraging it, I think is sometimes underappreciated because we're so focused on what comes next, but it's so important. And so I don't know if that was your intention to touch on, but I think it's something that, yeah, we really need to take a second to appreciate. I don't know, is that what you meant, or was that me
Yes, no,
over
absolutely.
implying things?
No, absolutely. That's exactly what my goal was, and that's exactly what we have been doing. And
Hmm.
honestly, doing interviews with these professionals, not just from the Lloyd Center, but also like those partner teachers, like from the local schools who have been
Hmm.
partnering from the Lloyd Center for past 18 years. So I get to
Hmm.
interview some of them, work with them, who are actually
Hmm.
elementary level classroom teachers, but from 18 years, they're having Lloyd Center come to their classroom, teach students about birds. So
Hmm.
they've been working with the center and having creating their own knowledge about this. And we
Hmm.
have been doing this research where not just the students, but the teacher comes up and say, because of this program or because of this person, now my husband says that I'm a birder. So you could also see that it's just not the impacts happening for the students, but it's also the impacts
Hmm.
happening with the overall teachers as well. And I think the flip side
Hmm.
is where like one of our staff members who is at the Lloyd Center is now a full-time educator staff member, but he
Hmm.
was a participant at Lloyd Center's education program when he was in his grade one and two. So you could see that now he has completed his undergrad program.
Hmm.
He went away from the area, but came back and started working at the same place where he went as his school field trip, and that's he started. So, and he talks about his motivation that the first time he remember learning about birds was at the center, and that's what he decided. That's got his attention. So you could see that whole circle coming back together,
Hmm.
and that's where the magic is happening.
Hmm. That's so empowering because it's something. So in another life where I'm not podcasting, or PhDing, but again, environmental educators wearing many hats. I work one day a week as the impact and evaluation officer at the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland. So trying to work out like what are these impacts, what are our long-term impacts, what are we doing with all of this time and all of these people who come and see us, like what's happening. um, and that's something that I think is so interesting and important and difficult to capture, right? Are these stories where like we have a kid for maybe a day, or a week if we're lucky for one of our longer programs. And then they go off into the world, and the pipeline just doesn't exist in a lot of ways to track, okay, where do they go, what other influences are coming in. And so, but to have one of those people come full circle all the way back round is, yeah, so incredible and the perfect case study. And I think leads really nicely into a question that I wanted to ask you about, which is obviously your presentation at this year's conference, which is, I'm going to make sure that I get the title right, Empowering Youth Leadership with Environmental Policy and Ecology is, yeah, it sounds like this is the perfect case study for that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going to be talking about during your session, which I believe is tomorrow? If you're here at the conference now listening to us live, it's tomorrow. What are you going to be covering? What are you going to be talking about there?
So for that session, so as I talked about it, that we've been doing a lot of research. So this is one of the programs that but Lloyd Centre has been teaching these week-long programs from years. But from past 4 years, I've been specifically teaching this coastal ecology week-long summer program, which is for upper elementary students. And we've been collecting in-depth data for that. It's been from students, parents, guardians who are involved, the guest speakers who are involved. So we will be sharing our findings, our lessons from these 1 week program, especially focused on policy making. So as you said, environmental educators, we wear multiple hats. So before I did my PhD, I was a environmental policy student. So I did my MBA in environmental policy, and I was working with one of the professor, Chad McGuire, who is a public policy professor at UMass Dartmouth. So once I started working with the Lloyd Center, I was like, how can I make connection with the awesome people that I've been working from years? So I worked with Chad to invite him as a guest speaker session to work with my students on policy making. And everyone was like, oh, upper elementary kids, policy level, it might be a different kind of thing. But it ended up to being one of the favorite session from the students as well, because it started giving students power to be the leaders to make decisions. Like they ended up learning about what policy impacts are, what kind of policy, how as individuals, as community members, they can get the power to decide like who can be close to the beach, how far do you want to make the houses. So it's a scenario based activities where students end up working in teams and develop policies for coastal communities. Like if someone is throwing trash outside, how can you implement that? Stuff like that. So we have data from 35 plus students who have developed policies in the last 4 years. So we will be sharing a lot of our lessons from there, a lot of student work actually, that you can actually go in and see what kind of policy these students made themselves and what was their reasoning behind it. And for our participants who are going to be joining for that session, we're going to do a quick simulation of this activity as well, so that they can feel what our students were feeling in the classroom. So I'm very excited for this session because our all research team will be coming in and doing this, which is also exciting because I started working in this program where it was just me, Rachel Stronach, who is the executive director for the Lloyd Center, and my academic advisor, Dr. Stephen Witzik. But now we have more than 5 or 6 team members. So over the 4 or 5 years, our team has grown as well. So it's so happy to see other people coming in and giving perspective. So it's a lot of lesson shared and a lot of perspective that we will be coming up in tomorrow's session. So I hope people who are watching will be able to join us and we'll be able to share more with them.
No, it sounds that was the perfect tease, and I almost want to ask you every question under the sun about it now, and then but that would spoil it all for everybody who's going to go tomorrow. I guess like thinking about it, I think my initial response to all of that is though that sounds incredible, and I think it's one of those things that like yeah I the creativity of young people, right? When they're given matched with the knowledge and the kind of the policy making aspect is such a powerful tool. I think we we see the creativity in kids we've worked with all the time. We see creativity in the art that they produce, in the way that they speak, in the questions they ask. And when you give them the knowledge of policy, I can only imagine that that just creates sparks that are incredible and would challenge probably even some of the uppermost policymakers of my country here in Scotland and yours. And just like, because they will ask questions and propose things that probably people like our age, older, would not like would not have the confidence or the ability to do anymore. So that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. Are there any, can you give us an example, like a little tease, maybe an example of one of the things that the kids came up with?
Okay, so one of the things that kids came up, and this is an interesting I remember debate, because at this point of time we are working with a lot of kids who live close to these coastal homes, uh, and they have this experiences, and one of them started developing their personal connection that their grandparents have a coastal home. So it was so interesting to see that every policy that that student was bringing in was from a personal perspective, that I don't want my grandfather or my grandmother to be cleaning someone else's trash on the beach. So we want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we're putting like cameras out. I'm gonna have like $500 fine for someone doing it. And the aha moment for that was because that person was working in the group, and other student said, listen, not everyone has that $500. Someone might have just dropped something by mistake. What are you gonna do about that? And I remember that student saying, oh my God, I didn't think about it. People can make mistakes as well. So maybe we'll not do the
Mm-hmm.
$500 fine. Maybe we'll give them one warning if it's happening for the first time. So that process of how it started with a personal thing, that they were like, no, it's going to be a fine. We're going to do it. But as soon as someone talk about compassion and mistakes, and all of a sudden the person was like, yeah, I mean, I understand mistakes can happen, and we need to work with them. So, one warning. So, that was just, I remember I was just watching that and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that this activity is having this kind of conversation, just not at policy level, but overall as a human perspective, and making them work
Mm-hmm.
together. So, that was very, very interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. I That's incredible, and it always, and this is such a nerdy reference that I don't know why, but whenever I hear stories like that, all I can think about is, and I think very wise, a wise person once said, "Wonderful, how wonderful the mind of a child is," and that is a reference to Star Wars and Yoda. But I think it's the correct way. Like every time I hear, I'm like, "Yep, how wonderful the mind of a child is!" Like, and the way that they can just yeah, be compassionate and be all of these things is wonderful. Um, I guess like, but we are. I'm watching the clock tick on, and we have a few minutes left. So, what I
Sure.
wanted to ask you about as well is not just is your session, but also we're on day 3 of conference now. We've got a couple days. We've got today and tomorrow left to enjoy. And I just wanted to ask, what sessions have you been engaging in? What are the kind of things that are inspiring you? What has been standing out to you? Like, is there anything you're really loving about this year's conference?
I think I've been loving the way that this, because so I've been part of NAAEE for a while. I was a CE Change Fellow. I was also a strand leader for building leadership in environmental education. So I've been part of the process internally as well, and now seeing that happening and people engaging, I think it's been something very rewarding to see, because we started working together with the proposals coming in and reviewing process. So it's like all the in-depth which happens in the back, and now seeing at the front where people are coming in and sharing it. And I think at this point of time where we are in the world, seeing people sharing their ideas and talking about it, I think that has been amazing thing to see, because this gives a platform. But as you said, as environmental educators, we wear multiple hats, but there are not also a lot of places where a lot of environmental educators can come in and share their experiences. So this is, so I
Mm-hmm.
always say NAAEE is home to me, because being an environmental educator, that's what I've been doing. So this conference is like homecoming, seeing people connecting with. people that have been working for a long time. And I think one of the
Mhm,
sessions that I really like, and I've been following that, is the National Geographic keynote that
mhm,
happened. Because I've been, my motivation to work in environmental education was nature photography. I was a nature photographer myself. So I think that
mhm.
seeing their work, connecting and seeing how they're investing in education and how important that is, that's been a very interesting and great experience for me.
No, I 100% agree. I think my first conference was something like it was Tucson a few years ago now. So 4 years ago, this is my fourth
Sorry.
one. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is that like even on the online, even in the online format, right? Seeing people's face pop up in the little Zoom boxes, I'm like, ah, there's that person that I love talking to every year. I'll need to message them. I'll need to say hi. What are you enjoying? And that sense of like, yeah, homecoming is exactly right. I think yeah, you summed it up perfectly. Um, I guess the final question I'm asking everyone, and it's completely different to a lot of the questions I've asked you, but as I introduced at the start, I'm the host of Pangolin, the conservation podcast. And that podcast is all about underappreciated, misunderstood stories and creatures in the conservation space. And
Mhm.
so the question I've been asking all of my guests, and I ask all my guests on the podcast and everyone, because I always like to hear what people say, is Hamza, what is your favorite misunderstood or underappreciated, underrepresented creature? Like what is the one that stands out to you?
Oh, so that's a great question. I think two of them that comes to my mind, and it's going to connect
Okay.
back to my work with WWF Pakistan. Is one
Hmm.
is the vultures, because those are
Hmm.
the species which not a lot of people, especially in Pakistan at that time, knew about and their significance to our life. So I think working with the
Hmm.
WWF was something really rewarding, even for me to learn at first,
Hmm.
because I didn't know the significant at that deeper level myself until I started
Hmm.
working with them, and how smaller things can impact their life and how we started working.
Hmm.
And the second one that I would like to say is the common leopards. That also connects back to Pakistan because it's a national park
Hmm.
right next to the capital city. And they started having some population growth there, and how it started impacting the people who were living there. And no one really understood that it's the human who are invading their space that has been there from centuries, and now
Hmm.
we are trying to create a problem for them, that why they're coming in rather than understanding. So I think those are the two species that I've seen people
Hmm.
not understanding, and that has been my first hand
Hmm.
experience of working with WWF and communities to make them understand.
Amazing. No, I think those are both phenomenal answers. And I think what's really nice is like whenever someone picks a mammal, I always get a little, I'm like, mammals get a lot of attention, so you're going to have to give a good reason for why a mammal would be misunderstood or underrepresented. And I think that was the perfect one. And yeah, both brilliant, both something I'm going to walk away and think about a lot today. And I think yeah, it sounds like you need to come on a guest to come onto the podcast to be a proper guest, so we can talk in more in depth about all of that work because that's a whole other aspect we didn't even get into, which is amazing.
Absolutely, I'll
That
be
being
happy
said,
to.
though. Yes, thank you so much. We'll stay in touch. That being said, we are in the last moments before we have to hang up this call and finish this conversation. So before we do, I just wanted to give you a second, Hamza, to promote anything that you want to promote. Is there any links, any social accounts? Do you want to promote your session tomorrow? What is there anything people should look out for? What do you want to tell them?
Oh, I think first of all, as you mentioned, if they attend our session, they're going to get a lot of information that we have been doing, a lot of research, a
Hmm.
lot of education work. So it's we have tried to compact a lot of information in that session. So
Hmm.
I'll love people to attend that and get more information.
Hmm.
And the other thing that I would like people to say is that visit Lloyd Center's social pages, and please
Hmm.
support us. Just follow us and share our work and see our work, and that is something as a nature center, as an organization who's working for these environmental issues, if we get supporters like these who can come and share our work and see our work and appreciate our work, that makes a huge difference for us who are working there, and it keeps us going. So please give us your follow and share our work. That will be awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hamza. Before we go, I'll also just say you can, if you'd like to learn more about what I do, I'm going to do a shameless self promotion. At
Please
Pangolin
do.
Podcast is available on all social media, and we're Pangolin the Conservation Podcast on all streaming sites. I'm at the only Jack Baker on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, so you can find me on all of those. The other thing I want to say is that my session is starting in an hour's time from when we're watching this live. So if you're interested in knowing more about my podcast work, specifically around Pride Month, it's starting in an hour. I think I had to say it because you come and say hi. And also we have the whole rest of the conference. We've got 6 more of these podcast recordings to go. So please make sure and keep tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, go and check out some of the other interviews. They've all been fantastic. And yeah, thank you so much, Hamza, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and all the best for your rest of the podcast as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you to all of you for tuning in. And until next time, goodbye.